Hey guys, what's up? So today we're going to be looking at a decimal fraction, right? What a decimal really is, the formal definition. And it says a decimal fraction is written in terms of tenths, right? We already knew that. And it says it is a fraction with an unwritten denominator, which is a power of 10, indicated by a point, the decimal point, before the denominator, okay? So basically decimals are fractions written in a different way. All right, guys? So that's really what a decimal is. Okay? And this is the notation we use. We have a decimal point here. As you can see, this is 0.5, right? And we write this as 0.5 because we indicate the placeholder to the left of the decimal point, right? And we can represent this as a fraction. 0.5 can be represented as 5 over 10, right? 5 over 10 to the 1. And as we see here, it's the same thing as 5 over 10 to the 1 because it's one decimal place. And this 5 is multiplied by 10 to the negative 1, right? So 10 to the negative 1 would actually would put a decimal point right here if you calculate it, right? So that's definitely correct, okay? So let's look at the next one. It says 0.53. Or 0.53 is the same thing as 0.53, which is the same thing as 53 over 100, right? Because there are two decimal places here, the 5 and the 3. Then you have 53 over 10 to the 2. 10 to the 2 is 100. Right, so you have 53 multiplied by 10 to the minus 2. All right. Then the next one is there are three decimal places, right? So it's 0.531. So it's 531 over 1000. Notice that the decimal places match the number of zeros in the denominator. Okay. Then it's 531 over 10 to the 3, which is the same thing as 531 multiplied by 10 to the minus 3. Okay. Then the last one here, it's 0.5317, which is the same thing as 0.5317. There are four decimal places here, so it's 10,000 with four zeros in the denominator. So it's 5317 divided by 10,000, which is the same thing as 5317 over 10 to the 4. And 5317 multiplied by 10 to the minus 4 is the same thing as 0.5317, right? And so on. This goes on for the next one would be 100,000 over whatever it is, right? And so on. All right, guys. So let's look at some examples now. All right, guys, great. So let's look at some examples here, okay? And let's look at the notes we have up here. It says 0 is placed to the left of the decimal point in order to indicate that the whole number is 0, okay? So this is the same thing here. There's a 0 to the left of the decimal point. Cool. And it says, note briefly, we can convert decimals to fractions and fractions to decimals. Okay, so we're going to do that later as well. All right, so let's look at these three examples. We have 6.5 multiplied by 10. Okay, so what we're going to actually do is, since we're multiplying by 10, right, we're going to move this decimal place to the right. Okay, so we're going to move that decimal place here, right? So we'd end up with 65, and the decimal place is right here, right? So we can just write that as 65. We don't have to put the decimal point because we don't need to indicate that there's a decimal there. All right. So let's do the next one. You notice we always move it to the right when we're multiplying. Okay. So when we're multiplying, we move the decimal place to the right. Okay. All right. So let's look at the next one. The next one is we're going to move this one two places to the right because there are two zeros in the 100, right? And it represents 10 to the 2, right? Okay, so we're going to move this two places to the right. So this is 1, 2 here, all right? So we're going to end up with 19.7. Cool. That's the answer for this one. All right, guys. Then this one now, we're going to move it three places. There are three zeros, and this would be 10 to the 3. So we're going to move it three places to the right. So this is 1, 2, 3. All right. So we'll end up with 47.1. All right, guys. Amazing, guys. It's beautiful, right? Yeah. So great. So let's move on to division now. This was multiplication. And remember, when you're multiplying, you move the decimal place, right? Decimal place to the right. Okay. The right side. All right, guys. Okay. So we're going to move on to division now. Okay. All right, guys. So we're moving on to division now. And we're going to do the first example. So we're going to divide by 10, which would be 10 to the 1, right? So when we're dividing, we don't move the decimal place to the right like when we're multiplying, right? So remember, multiplying is to the right, right? Now, for dividing, okay, for division, it's actually to the left, okay? So what we're going to do here is we're going to carry this decimal point to the left, right? So we'd get the point here, and the answer for this would be 0.09. All right. All right, same thing here for this one. We're going to divide this by 100, which would be 10 to the 2. So we're going to move it two places to the left. So we're going to go 1 and then 2. All right. So we're going to put a decimal point here, 0 point, and there should be 1, 2 zeros. Okay. So you notice we'll have to put a 0 there, 2 zeros, then 7, 9. Okay. So sometimes, guys, we'll have to put in the zeros as placeholders when we move the point to the left or the right. Okay. All right. So let's do the next one here. And we're going to move this three places because this would be 10 to the 3. We're going to move this three places to the left. All right. Because we're dividing. So we're going to get 1, 2, 3. All right. And if you don't remember, just put the zeros here. So there should be a 0 here and a 0 here. So you should have 0.0007671. And you notice the zeros here match the what you're dividing by. So you notice this has two zeros and then you end up with two places here. But don't really watch that. Just make sure you move the point to the right place. You understand? You want to make sure that you're moving the decimal point to the right place. When you're dividing, you go to the left. When you're multiplying, you go to the right. All right, guys? Okay, so let's look at some more examples now. All right, guys, great. So you know I love to do three examples, right? So the first one here, we have 372.498 divided by 10,000. All right. So this has four zeros, right? And we're dividing. So we need to move the decimal place to the left, right? So we're going to move it four places to the left because there are four zeros, right? So it's 1, 2, 3, 4. All right. Right. So the decimal place is right here. So we're going to get 0.0372 498. All right. Cool. All right. Then the second one now. The second one says 8.5 multiplied by 10 to the 3. Okay, so this is 8.5. It's the same thing as 8.5 times 10 to the 3, which is 1,000, right? Remember, 10 to the 3 is 1,000, right? And there are three zeros, right? Just because it's 10 to the 3. And we're going to move this to the right, okay, because we're multiplying. So we're going to get 1, 2, 3. All right, so the decimal point would be here. And we'll have to put two zeros, so we're going to end up with 8, 5, 0, 0. All right. So great. So the next one now, this is 3.017 multiplied by 10 to the minus 2. All right. Now don't let them trick you here, guys. This is 10 to the negative 2. So what does that really mean? Okay, let me just explain it up here. When you have 10 to the negative 1, this is the same thing as 1 over 10. Cool? So 10 to the negative 2 will be the same thing as 1 over 10 to the 2, which is the same thing as 1 over 100, right? So you're going to end up with 3.017 over 10 to the 2, right? So we really are dividing here. This is going to end up being the same thing as 3.017 divided by 100, right? Or 10 to the 2. So we're really dividing here. Even though we're multiplying, we're going to move this to the we're going to move this to the left because we really are dividing in this case. So this is a way that can trick you guys. Remember to look at the power to see if it's positive or negative. Then you decide where you're going to move the decimal point. All right. So let's do that now. We need to move this decimal point to the left because we're actually dividing. They were trying to trick us there, but they can't trick us. So let's move this to the left. All right. So we're going to go 1, 2 to the left. All right. That's where the point would be. So we're going to end up with 3017, right? All right. So this is the answer, guys. Okay. So we did 3 examples, right? And don't let them trick you with this, guys. I put it in there purposely so that you can notice this and look on the worksheets and see if we can avoid making that mistake. All right, guys? Okay, so we're going to do some more examples. We're going to be looking at decimals to fractions and fractions to decimals now. All right? All right, guys, you know I love the 3 examples, right? So we're going to be looking at changing decimals to fractions and fractions to decimals. All right? So for the first one here, we need to change the fraction 3 over 25 to a decimal. So we're actually going to have to divide here. We're going to end up with 25 divided by 3, right? But 25 can't divide into 3. So what we're going to do here is we're going to put a 0. Then we're going to put a point here. Then we're going to add a 0 to this one. And 25 goes into 30. How many times? 1 time. So we're going to have 25 here minus this, which would give us 5. Right. 5 can't go into 25, right? I mean 25 cannot go into 5. So we're going to add a 12. Yeah, we're going to add a 0 here. And then when we add that 0 now, 25 goes into 52 times. All right, so we're going to end up with 0.12 as the answer. All right, guys. All right, so that's the answer for the first one. Expressed as a decimal, 3 over 25 is the same thing as 0.12. And the next one now, it's 0.07, and it says express 0.07 as a fraction, right? 0.07. All right, so remember from the first example we did in this video, we know that this has 2 placeholders. So this is the same thing as 7 over 100. Cool, because it has 2 placeholders, right? Which is the same thing as 7 over 10 to the 2. So as a fraction, that's it. That's it, actually. It's just 7 over 100, and that's the answer. All right, guys. So the last one here, it says express 0.08 as a fraction in its lowest terms. So let's do that again. It's 0.08. And we're going to end up with 8 over, it's 2 decimal places, over 100. But it says in its lowest terms. So we need to break this down, all right? 8 can't go into 100, but what can go into 8 and 100? I know 4 can go into 8, and 4 can go into 100 as well. So 4 into 8 gives us 2, and 4 into 100 gives us 25. So that's the answer, 2 over 25. All right. All right, guys. So this wasn't too bad. Please do the worksheet, right? And I'll see you in the next lecture. All right, guys. All right, guys. So that's it. And I'll see you in the next lecture. And remember to do your best, and God will do the rest.